Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends from the global south and beyond. I hope you can all hear me. I am sitting in the organization called Research and Information Center for Developing Countries, and I have with me our colleagues. We were waiting for the Director General of RIS to arrive. He has been called away for a meeting with the government, and he has just sent a message that he would join us later. So we will begin the meeting now with welcoming you all and spending a couple of minutes to explain the organization and the purpose of this workshop. So as I said, RIS is Research and Information System for Developing Countries. All of you, most of you know us by having conversations with us. All of you know us through emails that we have exchanged with you. We are a 40-year-old organization. We work on four pillars: global economic governance and cooperation, trade, investment, and economic cooperation, trade, facilitation, connectivity, and regional cooperation, and new technologies and development issues. We have been having a vertical on South-South cooperation and development cooperation all through the time that we have existed. And we have a lot of research work that is available on our website relating to development cooperation. We also have a vertical called the Global Development Center, which works with countries of the global south in exchanging and sharing knowledge about the Indian experiences, Indian good practices that can be of use to other countries in the global south through GDC. Now, as you all know, the government has established the Global South Center of Excellence, which is also called DAKSHIN. DAKSHIN is a Sanskrit or Hindi word which means south. And when spelled in English, it is DAKSHIN, which is an acronym for Development and Knowledge Sharing Initiative. DAKSHIN was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India in the second Voice of Global South Summit that was held on the 17th of November as part of India's G20 presidency. The Prime Minister had shared his vision about DAKSHIN back in the first Voice of Global South Summit, which was held in January 2023, also as a part of India's G20 presidency. DAKSHIN has the vision to foster knowledge sharing and mutual learning for building capacities and developing sustainable, affordable, and locally relevant solutions by collating resources, experiences, and strategies to overcome development challenges the global south faces and to promote globally inclusive partnerships. In this exercise to promote globally inclusive partnerships, we are having this first virtual workshop on the theme of agriculture. We will have more virtual workshops going forward, and we will be intimating you about them as we finalize the dates and the themes. And we will also, as we have been talking with you about the possibility of having an in-person conference, an annual in-person international conference of the Global South think tanks. As and when that is decided, we will be sharing information about that also. But today, let us focus on the development challenges that the Global South faces in the agriculture sector and the development solutions that each of us can share so that the Global South can work for itself through agencies that are from the Global South and for the people of the Global South. So with these words, let me open the workshop and hand over to Dr. P.K. Anand, Dr. Pramod Kumar Anand, to take the conversation and the webinar forward. Dr. Anand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atul Kaushik. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all in this webinar. And as Mr. Atul has explained, the very purpose of DAKSHIN, we all know that the countries of South have the same aspirations. And if I come to agriculture, for which today's webinar is being organized, I think the first and foremost for all of us is to have a sustainable and resilient agriculture. Because if we see the global map, as of now, there are as many as 46 countries which are facing deficit in food, and they have to depend upon external assistance. Now, towards it, what we require a lot of interventions and initiatives, especially on investments, if I say to start with, and knowledge sharing through platforms like DAKSHIN, including on good agricultural practices. And going ahead from here, if I come down to some special sectors where we can intervene or we can exchange our thoughts, in the light of the fact that we need to progress, we need to be forward-looking. One area which comes to my mind is digitalization, in which many countries of Global South have done wonders. And we can exchange, and there are instances of sharing of platforms. Especially we have seen during the COVID times, and all the more we can complement the Global South for one good factor that during the pandemic, in spite of disruptions in supply chains, it was ensured that food security is handled. And it was a tough task for all of us, but if we see the overall position, so far as food security is there, it was handled very well. If I come down to say nutrition, there were issues, of course, if food security is hurt, the first priority becomes food security, and towards it also there were many solutions on nutrition side. For instance, millets, which we grow in Global South, are resilient, are nutritious, and are closer to the small farmers and can do wonders for all of us. Similarly, using science and technology, use of satellite imagery in estimation of crops or in finding where is water stress. So there are many aspects and vistas which we can share. So today we have a number of participants in this webinar from Global South. And to kickstart, I'll request Dr. Smita Siroi. She's a well-known figure among Global South. She was India's face during G20 in agriculture and had handled the deliberations right, not only from the start, but even prior to the start. And I can tell that RIS was involved as a knowledge partner and is even today a knowledge partner being a part of the Troika. So I hand it over to her to carry out on what is being done in India, and that will give us an idea. Later on, we'll be collecting various sources, what practices can be exchanged, for which I went through VNRs of some countries, and there are many interesting things which can be shared among us all. Over to Dr. Siroi. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you, Dr. Anand. I'll make a small presentation and ask my team to put up the slide. My dear fellow advocates for agricultural progress, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today, as we talk about the transformation which Indian agriculture has come across, let us talk about the common challenges which are there, which unite us, the Global South together. These are challenges which all of our countries are facing in one way or the other. The intensity may differ from one country to another, but either it is mismatch between the structural changes in output, the GDP of agriculture sector has gone down, but the workforce with the dependence of agriculture sector is still very high. Be it limited access to resources. On one hand, we have overexploitation of water resources. On the other hand, we have scarcity of resources. The efficiency levels are low. The infrastructure shortages are there. We have poor access to international markets. Although we are the net exporting countries as a group, still, I would say there's a lot we can do in terms of the international market access. The climate change challenges are very pertinent in this part of the world, because we see that most of us, a lot of these countries fall in the tropical region, and we are highly susceptible, and then of course the R&D and technological differentiation. We have the common challenges, but at the same time we also have the shared goals. Some people have already spoken about by Dr. Anand. We really need adequate food for all because we know the incidence of food insecurity is highest in the region. The consistent access to availability of safe and affordable food, resilience and sustainable agri-food system. That is also one of the priorities which we have to take forward. And of course, since a lot of our population is dependent on the agricultural sector, making agricultural livelihoods inclusive, equitable and economically viable. And I'm sure these kind of goals resonate well with all the countries of the global south. So there's a lot we can do together. Learning from each other is something which is why today's workshop has been there. So I'll just briefly take you through the journey of agriculture sector in very, very small, limited time that I have with me. Just a bird's eye view on the broad changes which have taken place in Indian agriculture. If you can see, the population between 1951 to 2001 has increased 3.8 times, but food production has gone up about 8.8 times. So therefore, per capita availability of food has gone up tremendously. So this is one of the major significant progress which Indian agriculture has made. And also in terms of agriculture sector income, you can see there's about a 7 times increase in the agriculture sector income. And this is the sectoral breakup. So it's not only one sector which is progressed, but you can see the positive growth rates in between 2005-6 to 2020-21 in all the sectors, and of course the fishery lead with 7.1% CGR. So let me just briefly tell you that what are the main schemes, what are the main programs that have charted India's progress. I'll be just covering the programs which are in place in past decade or decade and a half. Of course, to bring a country to this from a country which was a net importer of food to a country which has sufficient surpluses. Of course, everybody knows the story of the Green Revolution, but I'll not go to Green Revolution. So showing sustainability, first and foremost, you see the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, which is a very important mission here, and there are 2 submissions within this. And this is a part of the National Action Plan on climate change. The focus is mostly on the rain-fed area development. With the rain-fed we are most of our countries in the global south, the irrigation is less, so we are mostly dependent on rain-fed agriculture. So this is a program which is on rain-fed agriculture, and then we also have the soil health card. So these are the schemes. With soil health card, you see there's a lot of the productivity of soil has gone down. The nutrient imbalances are there, because of which there is so much malnutrition. Also, is responsible to some extent. Malnutrition is also there, which emanates from the poor quality of soil, because the food products do not have that kind of nutrient availability now. So the soil health card scheme, which is a very good scheme, which talks about that how soil is tested in various places, and then the fertilizer application, the nutrient application is according to the deficiency, rather indiscriminate use of fertilizer. This is another flagship program. This is on the natural farming. This is back to basics and march to future. This is what our Honorable Prime Minister has brought about this natural farming scheme about. So we have to, rather than using chemical fertilizers, rather than using pesticides, we can go back to how traditionally farming was done, where we can increase the production of our crops. But at the same time, going back from chemical fertilizers, from chemical farming to natural farming requires a lot of behavioral changes by the farmers, and that is where management and knowledge portals are important. Crops of change, I would say. Now, diversification has been the mantra, that we need to diversify from wheat, rice, and maize cropping systems. We need to diversify more and more. So, leveraging the International Year of Millets in 2023, there is a lot of emphasis on millets, and this again, millets, as was mentioned earlier, is the crop of the global south, as I would say. Most of the millets are grown in this region. They are highly climate resilient and very nutritive. So this is one crop which is being very group of crops which are being promoted. Then adapting to climate change. As I said, climate change is of course one of the problems which we are facing universally across the world, but in the tropical countries, the intensity is much more. This project, National Innovation on Climate Resilient Agriculture, was a World Bank funded project where more than 1,700 varieties of climate resilient crop varieties have been developed, and also climate resilient model villages have been developed. Then in risk management, you see very closely related to the incidents, climate change and incidents of extreme weather events, is the risk management which needs to be there for the farmers. So this crop insurance scheme, this is one of the largest crop insurance schemes in the world, where the farmers are covered on the area approach. And to make the thing simple, everything has been digitalized so that there's a lot of transparency and quick settlement of payments. And it's also based on the actuarial principle. The payment of premium is not only a flat premium, so that it will be loss-bearing enterprise for any kind of insurance company, but actuarial premiums are set and there are government subsidies because in case the farmers are not able to meet those kind of premiums. Then we have a large scheme which is Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, or we can say this is the National Agriculture Development Program. It is a project-based program, and the emphasis is on remunerative farming, that how those kind of projects will be funded, where the income from the farmers can increase very substantially. Improving access to market is another challenge. To meet that challenge, ENA, which is the National Agriculture Market Portal, all in the electronic formats, the farmers can reach out to any part with a huge country like India to meet this kind, to develop this kind of a market means that farmers can sell from one part of the country, any part of the country, the farmers can sell, and there's a lot of transparency in kind of discovering the price discovery in the digital framework. Then again, to promote the agribusiness, there's a small farmers agribusiness consortia we have, and there's a new program which has come up in the recent years is to set up 10,000 farmer producers organizations. These farmer producers organizations link the small farmers to the markets. And agriculture infrastructure development, 1 trillion Indian rupees, this fund has been created, especially focused on the post-harvest management, infrastructure for post-harvest management and farm assets, so that the custom hiring centers for these farm assets can be built. And digitalization is, of course, one of the area where Dr. Anand also mentioned is one of the area where a lot of the other countries, we can have very good examples, but this is AgriStack, where Indian government is trying to bring in a lot of transparency and a lot of efficiency through developing the database on which these apps can be developed, so that the services can be delivered to the farmers. And this is one example of such kind of services. This is M-Kisan, that is the mobile telephony. The mobile telephony in the penetration has increased tremendously. And this has been leveraged to send out the advisories, the farm advisories or the crop advisories or weather advisories to the farmers through the SMS, or even we have the Kisan call centers which are called, that these Kisans can also be, they can just call up and they can find out if they have a particular problem, like any kind of customer care centers. These are for the farmer centers. These are two kind of things are used for information and technology dissemination. So I'll end here, and I will just try, and I'll just tell this, the last word, saying that we have not to learn from each other. So these are some of the things which I just very briefly shared from India. And since we have, I can see a huge number of people joining from other parts of the world, it would be a good platform to share each other's experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sirohi. I think to be very frank, when we talk in terms of sharing, I'm grateful to her that she has kindly agreed to share her presentation also with all of you. And Dakshin will see that it's available to you all. We have gone through the voluntary national reviews of various countries on especially the agriculture part. And there are many other initiatives like, say, for higher productivity, better irrigation intensity, reduction of vulnerability against disasters. We all know that, especially if we compare global south with the rest of the world, the frequency of disasters is going up, the intensity is going up, the variance is going up. So we have to handle all these things. And at the same time, we have to maintain a growth rate of agriculture which exceeds the population growth rate, and in addition to that, to give something additional for the higher incomes which are now available to a larger section of the society. From here, after this presentation, I go to the first discussant. Dr. S.R. Rao is our first discussant. He is Vice President of the Balaji Vidyapeeth University in Pondicherry, and he has done immense work on genetic engineering, biotechnology, genome editing of crops, and his focus is on technology transfer also. But here he comes as a discussant. Dr. Rao, floor is yours to on the presentation made by Dr. Sirohi. I request for 5 minutes only. Thank you very much. Dr. Rao.
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So first of all, thanks to RIS and Dakshin for giving this opportunity. I'm also overwhelmed with the presentation of Smita Sirohi, giving a bird's eye view of the problems and also the schemes that India is effectively implementing. And yes, I come from a biotechnology background, having spent something like 38 years in the government of India at the policy and level. Now today, I'm wearing a different place because I'm seeing what is being practiced. So I would rather go on three aspects. Yes, there are global problems, and there are global south problems, there are north problems. But I would like to classify them into three very traditional system of classification, that is local problems, regional problems, and global problems. And also, there are some issues of technology equity and technology access and affordability also, and technology availability and technology capability, technology development capability. So most of these technology related areas, global south is more or less about, I can conservatively say that 10 years we are behind, whatever the technologies that we are talking about, and particularly those advanced technologies where with a limited resource and very sustainable agriculture can be practiced, they are mostly developed in the north. So local problems, I see that local agriculture, local farmers, even in the health sector also, within India, one of the biggest challenge I saw is whether these people are aware of these projects and schemes, how many beneficiaries we have to have realistically in the country compared to how many of them are registered. So the last mile traveled is very important in terms of benefiting the local farmers who practice completely different type of agriculture from area to area. The second thing is at the same time, there are some regional commonalities, regional advantages, regional technologies, which are really important for addressing sustainable agriculture, climate change issues. And so those issues, the regional technologies have to be also propagated. In these many agriculture universities in India, at least half a dozen of them are doing one of the wonderful job. There is a lot to learn from them, how they actually disseminate these technologies. The third one is national. At the national level, recently in the past 6, 7 years, we have got several important schemes as highlighted by Smita Surohi, and there are many success stories which can be possibly emulated by South countries. And also there are many lessons to be learned with COVID and post-COVID initiatives. Even in the North, many Western countries also learning from us the digital initiatives on a large scale that we are practicing. Now, coming to global problems, two global problems which are common at the local, regional, and national level are climate change. One of them is definitely climate change. Second one is the access, there is no equity in access of technologies, particularly technology transfer issue. There are mega issues going on at the WIPO level and also at the level of even yesterday World what do you call forum. So all these places, the inequity in technology transfer and technology access is also very heavily discussed. Now the point is climate change, there is IPCC and all that is there, but there are many local, regional, and then nation-specific problems. We have to really address them case by case by what I call this type of initiative like South-South initiative, where some common problems can be shared within the scope of development. The last point I want to say is that, yes, the technology point of view, over a period of time, although our people are going from all over the developing country, people are going and studying for postdoctorals, other scientific places, profusely uh, for their own benefit. But how far it is giving access to technologies, access to knowledge, skilled workers? There's a heavy migration happening in many countries. So this is leading to even those who are skill developed, they are emigrating other places. I think the somehow where we have to also address the global technology access issues through any of these UN organizations, including RIS. RIS has been doing tremendous job in terms of technology transfer in the Asian countries others, and this will be another initiative which will also go a long way. Last point I want to make is that it is also important, while South-South cooperation is very important, I think Dr. Sachin and we had many examples in the past where North-South, so North-South north or north-south, some of these collaborations are also very important for ensuring that technology is easily accessed, understood, and assessed for before that is adapted at a regional or local level. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. And your points are very, very valid and pertinent for Global South. And my special thanks for taking just the allotted time. Now I move to the other discussant on the PowerPoint, Dr. Kalpana Sastry. She is a kind of innovation running a kind of innovation hub called Ag Hub. And the purpose is for food, to promote food and agri-tech startups. She herself has been involved in agriculture sector for a large number of years and is also an expert on impact assessment of emerging technologies. So over to you, Dr. Kalpana Sastry, for say five minutes.
Thanks a lot, and good afternoon, evening, or good morning, whatever the time schedule says. Taking thanks to RIS and the organizers for inviting me and being part of this very important event. Just taking the thread, Dr. Smita and Dr. SR, in my view, yes, at the policy level, we have a lot of schemes coming in. I'll just try to highlight the South-South banalities in place. Can you suddenly it got unmuted?
We can hear you now.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear me before. Okay.
We lost you for from 5 to 10 seconds, but we can
Okay,
hear you.
fine. So continuing what has been spoken by the earlier speakers, and great collation of all slides, Dr. Smita. I don't think we have a one place, projection of all the schemes. Now, if you notice, in a country like India, which has been agrarian always, we've had now new path-breaking initiatives coming from the government. But if you want to actualize them, we need to really think, where do we have to put? For example, the type of innovations which are coming up, they're also not only in South-South, it has always been a public sector driven agriculture research and development system, right to the extension. But the last 5 to 6 years, especially yesterday was the National Startup Day, which was launched way back in 2015 or so by the government in India. There has been a spurge of several innovators coming up on their own because of passion, interest, and some of the offerings. So we have to now recognize that there is an entity like agri startups coming up, and it's the situation in all the countries in South. Only thing is probably enabling agencies like us should try and focus, bring those innovations which can fit into the schemes which were referred by the first speaker. For example, I look at regenerative agriculture as one upcoming area for the South-South thing. I also look, of course, the digital agriculture, scenario as one more area. And all this, I think, would be for realizing bioeconomy concept coming in South-South. To do these things, we must see that the schemes are supplemented by some of the innovations. For example, I said bio-based inputs. Argentina has been a country which has been very effectively working in PPP models for getting successful stimulant industry into it. Can we think that under the scheme of natural farming in Government of India, there is a bioresource center concept opened in all the villages across, where we train our smallholder farmers to actually make the bio input products. One of the problems in these is packaging can be a problem. The local use and the lack of awareness to make them into a commercial entity is a problem. So the learnings from across each of these countries can definitely help smallholder farmers across all these in this region to take it forward if we have to take all these. Now, one last word, we talked about international millet. I think the emphasis is on local food, and we are endowed in this region with local and native varieties. Can we all work together to promote local native varieties to the export level without losing the nativity and without losing all those aspects which we have been richly endowed with. I think that's one sector. South region is very much at a strength area. Only thing we have to implement, common projects which can be actualized into raising the economy, not only at the global level, but first at the local level, and then regional, and then of course the global level. So I don't know my time limit. I can go on and talk on this, but my strength is, let's identify 3 to 4 areas where we all in this region can garner the strengths, take lessons from each other, and convert them into a more prosperous solution. Of course, also understanding farmers, grassroots innovators, agri-tech startups, all have something to contribute in our fight today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalpana Sastry. You're very right that yes, you can keep on speaking, and with vast knowledge on agriculture, and RIS has been interacting heavily, and in fact for the Think Tank 20 also, she was involved in that process extensively. Now I move beyond the discussants, so I'll request to start with Mr. Lowell A. Dang from Ebony Center for Strategic Studies, South Sudan. So Dang, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and I also take this opportunity to thank the RIS for inviting me. And I really, here I'm not an agriculturist, but I'm a development economist, and I'm more of trying to learn and appreciate the presentation made by the main presenter and also colleagues who subsequently commented on. Come from South Sudan, where we consider ourselves or experts in that South Sudan is a potential breadbasket, not just for local or regional, but also to the rest of the world. But our challenges, of course, facing South Sudan in terms of infrastructure, in terms of low productivity. We have about 30 million hectares, of which only 4% is under cultivation. And the yield, the metric ton per hectare is about 1.1 metric ton, which is very low. And the area is large, and you have a population of ranging between 10 million to 12 million people. So it basically is under populated country. So, but these challenges are its infrastructure and low productivity, conflict. Of course, there's been going through the civil war, and then now, as we speak, conflict in Sudan, where we separated from, which will have consequences on South Sudan. And of course, the climate, which had been mentioned before, we have some extremes. We have a lot of flooding in most cases, but also occasional drought. So we are also facing those issues of climate change. And the fifth one is really low level of literacy. We had about only 34% of adults know how to read and write. So that is also a challenge for agriculture. But then we have opportunities. We have cultivated land, which I just mentioned, 30 million hectares, of which only 4% is utilized. We also have as I said before, is a potential opportunities for, if there's investment, especially South-South collaboration, can lead to addressing the issues of food security within the Africa region, but also locally in South Sudan. And the final, in my view, opportunity is that South Sudan has a strategic location, even though it is a landlocked country, but it is at the heart of Africa. So that gives some strategic locations. And I look forward really to look at issues of access to technology, and also begin to think in terms of within our own center, we are thinking on how to use leapfrog into the 21st century. For instance, we are thinking on how to use the artificial intelligence for economic policy formulation and execution. And there we think on the digital, embracing digital for financial transformation, whereby all the government processes are digitized, and in that way will really improve processing of government budget and execution and monitoring and so forth. So I really want to appreciate this opportunity and look forward to a more productive exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Deng. And I feel very happy that more than 200 delegates have joined by now. And you very rightly spoke and emphasized on the education part of it, and especially when we look from the lens of digitalization. Obviously, we do not want to create a digital divide. So education per se plus digital education are critical for all of us. And you also mentioned that in certain countries land is available. So how we can go ahead by to harness that land towards food security remains very important for us. I next invite Mr. Mamadou Hafizu Barry. He is from the Republic of Guinea, working in Initiative for Economic Foresight and Sustainable Development. Mr. Barry, please. For 5 minutes, Mr. Barry. I move to the next. Okay, so we'll come back when you are available, Mr. Barry. And I move to the next speaker, Mr. Mokuku from Zambia, and he is in the Zambian Institute for Policy Analysis and Research. And may I request to take the floor for say 5 minutes or so.
Sorry. Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Hear you?
You can hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you,
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Mugu.
we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this conference. As indicated, I come from the Institute for Policy Analysis and Research, which is actually a government-funded think tank. Though we carry out our mandate with a great sense of independence and advise government on various policy developments. Now, like my colleague before from South Sudan, I also am not an agriculturist. I'm more of a development and international economist. So I take a perspective of much more policy perspective. And what I want to share with you is really our experience in Zambia with the agricultural sector, where we are. We've gone through a process of political and economic change, which means also a shift in terms of our policy thrust. Now, a bit of a background about Zambia. Zambia is like South Sudan is also a landlocked country, though we like to think of it as being land-linked, in the sense that we're surrounded by 8 other countries, and we have no direct access or link to the international maritime transport routes. Zambia has got a size of 750,000 square kilometers area, and more than just about over half of that is arable land, which is about 42 million hectares, which is available for farming. But out of that 42 million, only 1.5 million is actually being utilized. So we are grossly underutilizing the space that we have. But also in terms of climate, Zambia is with an agro-friendly climate. It's fairly warm, and it's very conducive for producing a wide variety of crops, such as maize, tobacco, wheat, soybean, cotton, groundnut, millet, sorghum. And also, we've also managed to go into exotic crops, such as apples, grapes, and strawberries, which are basically Mediterranean-type crops. Our focus in terms of agricultural policy has been much more on the production of maize. So the emphasis has always been maize production. It's what we call a maize-centric economy, maize-centric agricultural policy. But of course, there have been efforts to try to look at other opportunities, as I've indicated, to look at other opportunities in the past. But policy has been focused much more on agricultural production, because agriculture, the production of maize, is a production that's a staple food in this country. So it has a lot of political and social sensitivity. So it's crucial for food security in the country. That's why the emphasis has been so much on that. So current production is just over 3 million kwacha, 3 million tons per year, at the last count. But what we see ourselves is that principally this output is very insignificant in terms of the capacity that we have in terms of land masses. What has happened now, when we look at our achievements, what are the challenges that we have faced principally, is that we have not really been able to achieve high levels of production in terms of agriculture. We've not been able to achieve being where we ought to be, given the land mass that we have, the groundwater resources that we have, the surface water resources. Everything is here, but the progress that we've made in terms of agricultural production has been very low. So our achievements have been fairly gradual, but insignificant in relation to what we are capable of achieving. So what are the sources of the problems? Productivity levels in our country is very low. Let me talk about maize. Our production is 2 metric tons per hectare, which is very low compared to the norm that we expect. We expect to produce, by comparison with our neighboring countries, we should be producing 10 metric tons, but we're producing 2 metric tons. Why is this productivity level so low? One is the over-reliance on rainfall. We wait for nature to take its course and we hope and pray that the rain will be adequate and consistent through. But oftentimes, for a variety of reasons, issues of climate change, there are floods, there are droughts, and this can cause quite a lot of havoc. We have poor infrastructure, roads, bridges, dams for the supply of water. All these tend to be in limited supply. Zambia is a vast country. It's a very vast country, and many of the places are not reachable. So the infrastructure is absolutely vital. It also leads me to the other problem, which is access to markets. If you are producing one of these far-flung areas, you produce under difficult circumstances, then you have to transport this to the market. You don't have transport facilities, you don't have roads in which vehicles can come and pick up that agriculture. So it becomes very, very difficult to produce, very demotivating. Financing is also a big problem. We don't have specialized financial institutions which can cater to the interests of the agricultural sector. Even other specialized services such as insurance, agricultural insurance, are not readily available. Then poor marketing arrangements, which is also linked to infrastructure. How do we, first of all, there must be information. There must be information about the markets. There must be infrastructure which enables you to move the product to the market. So this has also been problematic. The extension services have also somehow degenerated, partly because of poor funding from government. That has also become a big problem. The other problem which we've also seen is critical, especially in terms of maize, is the pricing of maize. Because of the sensitivity of this product, government has always intervened in the market, which to me amounts to interference. Government intervenes in the market. It sets the prices. Now, what considerations does government take into account in arriving at this price? So this form of interference makes the whole market unpredictable. People have to wait and say, what is the government going to declare? And is that price suitable for us? So these are some of the challenges. I would stress that, especially in terms of maize production, this is one of the bigger problems because it's a policy dilemma which government faces. The question is, when rural farmers produce this maize has to go into the urban areas. The urban areas are places of industrial production, mining production, and so on. So government has to have a balance between service serving the interests of the rural farmers, rural community, and serving the interests of the urban community. So the pricing is what determines this balance. And what has happened now is that as government moves to determine what kind of price, the political economy of our country is such that the urban elites tend to be much more stronger. So government will set a price which will not hurt the urban communities. Now, that problem is that the prices that the farmers get are low. So the motivation for them to produce maize is also limited because they are not getting any significant return. On the other hand, if government decides to set a very high price for maize and it translates into a higher price of the staple food in the shops, then that creates political and social problems. So this is the dilemma that government faces. So what do we see as possible solutions to the Zambian agricultural dilemma? One, I see that they need to strengthen the role of the private sector in terms of investment in agriculture, in terms of marketing, and very, very closely linked to that is to move back in terms of interventions and interference in the market. The interventions by government have not allowed the market to develop and function in the way it should be functioning. So there's need to pull back in terms of interference so that the market is developed and is able to send the right kind of signals. Only selective intervention, may I say, not a full-blown determination of prices which may not be linked to what the market really wants. We also need to revamp extension services to distinguish, so that we distinguish between, and it should distinguish between viable farmers and social farmers. Then we also, the point there I'm making is that there's been a tendency to provide extension services globally. And that means the government is overstretched. But the problem is that they're trying to provide extension services even to people who don't need extension services. So at the end of the day, the resources are not sufficient, and most of the resources end up being diverted towards the people who have capacity. So there's need to rethink the extension system and make sure that it's properly funded and it focuses on viable farmers as opposed to social farmers. Or you must be very clear on what objective you're trying to achieve. When you're supporting the social farmers, these are people who are traditional subsistence farmers, as opposed to those who are operating for the purpose of farming as a business. We also need to build up the infrastructure so that we facilitate access to markets and also access to, when I say infrastructure, I mean about roads, bridges for transportation of the products, but also we need to set up dams where we can store water for the purpose of irrigation. We also need to expedite the mechanization of our agricultural sector. Most of our agricultural producers are smallholders, so their technology tends to be rudimentary. You use ox-drawn plows, you use manual weeding, hose to do the weeding. The productivity of that kind of approach is also pretty limited, and it adds to the cost, reduces the amount of output that you can generate. Then we also, when I talk about infrastructure, the irrigation system, we cannot continue depending on rain-fed agriculture. This is unpredictable. Climate change is here with us, and we can invest substantially in seeds, in fertilizer, but if the rain does not come and we've planted a very big area, it will be a total loss, and it's a totally demotivating and financially and economically disastrous for the smallholder. So we need to invest in irrigation facilities. We need to expedite the program of enhancing irrigation to smallholders. One of the things which I must mention is what is called the farm blocks, which the government has initiated, which is where they identify big areas, cut off big areas, and pass all this out to potential farmers. This is one big area. So all these things must be linked. The irrigation system, the farm blocks, and the services which are going to be provided in those farm blocks is also very crucial. And then we should also enhance the linkages between, we need to establish mechanisms of harvesting water. You know, there are times in this country when certain parts of this country are, like in the southern part, it tends to dry up much more quickly. But in the northern part of the country, it tends to be much more there's much more rainfall in that area. So water flows down from the northern part of the country towards the south, towards the Indian Ocean. So during the process of the transmission of that water, during the high season when there's a lot of rainfall, we must be able to harvest that water and store it and make it available for irrigation and also for the purpose of generation of energy. The other thing I must also mention is...
Dr. Harik, may I request you to finish saying in a minute or two? I should get to.
Yes, let me just make my last quick comment. One of the important things is the farmer input support program which government has put in place to try to support, which has not worked very well. It has raised production, but not adequately, and it has been a source of wastage. So government is putting in place what is called a comprehensive agricultural support and transformation program to ensure that we target we target the viable farmers. Just quick points. I think we should encourage regional value chains so that agricultural products can cross international boundaries, taking advantage of the regional integration processes in Africa and at that SADC level. We must expedite the diversification of agricultural output so that we don't only focus on maize, but we look at the whole range of potential products and facilitate the access to the markets. So in conclusion, Chair, I think this opportunity of interacting with the wider community of the Global South is a great thing. We have experiences, we have challenges and problems. So it's good for us to interact with other policymakers, other players within the market, and see what we can learn from them in terms of technology, in terms of actual policies, in terms of the whole relationships between all the stakeholders. So, Chair, I thank you for your kind attention. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harik Mupoku. Friends, our Director General RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, is also with us. And I would like to share that when the G20 proceedings started in India during India presidency, I think he was the first one in this very hall who emphasized on sharing of technology with other countries of South. He had said that, yes, we do talk that South should get technology transfer from North, but he added that whatever we have, we should also share happily with the Global South. And he had also emphasized on promotion of millets. And I'm very happy to see that Dr. Harik and other speakers also have mentioned, and Dr. Sirohi has also mentioned about millets and how millets can be promoted. And we have noted that there are Gambia, a landlocked country. You have land which is underutilized, and we are getting some interventions also. One has come from Mr. Daga also. He has said that there's lack of collective capacity and institutions. So that the point on institutions has also been emphasized from the delegates who are attending this conference. I next take you to St. Lucia, Mr. Greg Rollins. He's a ISA representative in East Caribbean states. Mr. Rollins, the floor is yours for say around next 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Pleasant good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is joining us. My name is Greg Rollins, representative in the Eastern Caribbean states. I want to take this opportunity to first thank the RIS for the kind invitation to participate in this forum. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can send.
Yes, okay. I want to focus my intervention on the issues of the approach that we have adopted in IICA to pursue farmer-centric solutions in the agricultural sector. Supporting, and I'm looking at St. obviously. So we are looking at our experiences and successful initiatives in agriculture in St. Lucia. And I want to thank my colleagues in ECA here in St. Lucia for supporting me in putting these slides together. We basically, just to introduce ECA briefly, we are the specialized institution for agriculture in the Inter-American system. We have offices in 33 countries across the Americas. Our headquarters is in Costa Rica. And our objective is to support member states in the hemisphere to build a competitive, sustainable, and inclusive agricultural sector. And we focus this on producing and leveraging actionable knowledge We do a lot of work at the grassroots level, but also at the policy levels, giving perspective to hard and both soft approaches to development. And we look at systems and relationship building through technical interventions versus one-off interventions. We believe that we need to have technical interventions that are sustainable as against one-off interventions. A number of speakers have highlighted a number of the challenges facing the agriculture sector in their countries. We have much of the same challenges, but I just want to highlight within our context here in the Eastern Caribbean that there are some development challenges that are fundamental, one being the issue of youth unemployment. We have a youth unemployment rate that is very high, 26%, and a maximum of 42% in some countries. We've been observing that the agricultural value-added contribution has fallen since 1990 by 2.3% per annum. And we've also been seeing a falling income yield of agricultural land. So we are seeing there are productivity issues facing the agricultural sector. However, we see agriculture as a major employer and driver of economic growth. And also we see smallholder sustainable agriculture as the most efficient and socially just way to increase productivity resilience to climate change and improve household food security. And this is a construct that is very, very important for us in the Eastern Caribbean. We have many smallholder producers, and therefore our focus has been on supporting them. We build solutions. We focus on producing capacities and systems through technical cooperation, so that we spend a lot of our effort and time on working with community-based organizations, working with rural persons, and involving them in the development process. We also foster a lot of horizontal technical cooperation. We bring experts from other parts of the region and the world to share experiences, and therefore we identify with what the South Center of Excellence and DAKSHIN and RIS are doing. But we foster a lot of that cooperation within the hemisphere, and we are very open to fostering that sharing and information between other parts of the world and people in the Caribbean. So this has been a major approach for us moving forward. In terms of our producing solutions and not one-off interventions, we recognize that while projects are important, they are necessary but insufficient outcomes at times. There's a culture of dependency that is created, and there's often limited capacity building. And therefore, we want to change the narrative from facing challenges to building capacity to produce solutions. So we want to be focused more on farmer-centric approaches to produce solutions and learn these that will allow the stakeholders themselves in the communities to generate solutions to their problems, as against depending on persons all the time to come in and solve their problems. I just want to share a few examples of some of the things that we've been doing. We recognize the importance of using digital technologies, particularly in supporting farmers' participation in markets. We've worked on a platform called the Guru Marketplace. And this is a platform that we've developed in coordination with farmers, with buyers, and with the people involved in hotel industry and the supermarket industry, to see how we can have farmers being able to place information on the platform in terms of what they have available, what prices they're seeking, and so on. And the same thing in terms of buyers. So it allows for better interaction between the producers and the buyers. We have also been developing our extension. Our reference was made to extension. So we've been developing an agri-extension app, where the idea is to provide farmers with remote access to agri-extension services. We know that we have limited resources in terms of human resources to do extension work. So we need to use digital technologies that will give farmers, and a lot of our farmers are now using smartphones in our case, and we do have fairly good connectivity in our rural spaces, so that our farmers are able to access extension services, highlight some of the problems they're facing using these digital technologies. In terms of enhancing food and nutrition security, we recognize the importance of addressing the issue of food security. We have to look at the food system's utility to our citizens, and we do a lot of work in terms of working with the schools. And we have a program called the HOOPS program. That is a program helping out our primary and secondary schools. We help them to establish gardens. We provide access to guaranteed markets by working with supermarkets. And we support student agri-learning and access to healthy foods through the school meals programs. We've also been doing a lot of work in the area of community composting and farming, so that we are supporting persons in converting trash to cash, as we call it, taking waste and converting it to meaningful and useful resources that have a value. And at the same time, the compost does add to build back our soils, which have been subjected to significant depletion over the years. And this can help us to address the issue of productivity on our farms. So this issue of food systems utility is very important for us as well. We also have been doing some very interesting work in developing commercial mushroom production here in St. Lucia. We recognize the potential for mushroom production allows us to use a high level of local content. It also is a highly nutritious source of essential protein and nutrients, and a high value agricultural product with growing domestic and regional demand. And what we've been able to do in the case of mushrooms is foster a lot of innovation in the industry and engage the young people and the women. So we have projects that have empowered women in terms of mushroom production. We have an ongoing project dealing with youth engagement in mushroom production, so that and they're using a very regenerative approach and a circular economy approach to the development of the mushroom industry, using a lot of the local materials that we have available in the rural spaces. We're also doing a lot of work in the area of sustainable and climate resilient agriculture, adaptive farmers and farming models. We've been working on rural bioeconomy and regenerative cocoa modeling, using practical bioeconomic approaches and boosting productivity and enhancing livelihoods. We have strong rural enterprise focus in terms of linking production systems to markets. And we've also been doing work on nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based adaptation approaches in agriculture, using vetiver grass as a conservation measure to minimize runoff and negative impacts on the coastal communities, but at the same time using the vetiver grass as a resource for the community members to generate new products, soaps and craft and so on. You will see from our presentation that all that we do, we try to link to the community and to well-being and livelihoods in the community. We believe that it's important, if they're going to sustain interventions at the community level, that people be able to benefit in terms of being able to have products that they can sell and so on. Reference was made to climate change and its impact. So we've been doing this. It's a very big issue for the Eastern Caribbean countries. We are very vulnerable. We're one of the most vulnerable regions in the world to these adverse weather impacts. We've had significant destruction and devastation over the years. And therefore, building a resilient agriculture sector is one of the highest priorities that we have established. And therefore, we've had GCF projects where we have sought to raise the agricultural sector profile in GCS climate financing prioritized processes. We've prepared the Caribbean agriculture more engaged in the global climate conversations, so we can be better positioned to effect outcomes. And we can also drive the message, agriculture as a solution to climate change, not just as a contributor to climate change impacts, but as a solution to climate change. And we also have a very interesting forum that we would like to share with you called the Caribbean Climate Responsive Agriculture Forum. It's a forum where we bring people together to share information on what's going on in the agriculture sector from a climate change perspective. And we see this as a type of mechanism that is consistent with what you're doing through the RIS and DAKSHIN, and that you're building networks for information sharing. And the CC Craft, as we call it, is one such mechanism here in the Caribbean. I just want to close by having this slide that highlights what we are about. We are promoting leveraging knowledge as a development resource, not just the factors of production and funding and the hard technologies, but looking at how we can leverage knowledge as a development resource, working with our stakeholders, our farmers in particular. Therefore, we have to start by expanding the opportunities for value-added engagement, by working with our farmers, by building linkages and networks, understanding their problems, understanding the resources they have available, understanding their limitations, and looking at the opportunities. And then we need to translate that to what we call producing actionable knowledge and learning for development. And then out of producing this actionable knowledge, once we have the take-up of this actionable knowledge and people can take the necessary action, we should see an improved productivity and efficiency in our agri-food systems. So this is just to share some of what we've been doing at ICA in terms of our approach. And again, I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity. And we look forward to continuing engagement with the RIS and with through DAKSHIN and also with other development partners across the South in pursuing the development of the agricultural sector. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Secretary Rollins. And you have not only touched upon the food security part, but also nutrition, especially for children in the schools and gardens. In fact, in India also we are doing something similar, and we are covering children starting say age of 3 also. So I'm sure that such kind of practices can be shared, and you emphasize on sharing of knowledge also, and that's a part of the name of this initiative by India in any case. I next move to the Kingdom of Tonga, and I request Lady Fane Fatafanua. She is the Chief Operations Officer, Royal Oceania Institute, Kingdom of Tonga. Floor is yours for say around 5 minutes.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, greetings from the Kingdom of Tonga. For those of you who aren't aware, we are in the South Pacific and it's about 2 a.m. here. But I'm so happy that RIS invited us to be a panel on this very important webinar. And so we're also very happy to share some of the information you've been speaking on. A little background on Tonga that can just share some light. Some of the benefits that we have here, despite being a very small island, is that we have a very low poverty rate and very high standards of education and health, with Tonga having one of the highest PhD capita in the world, but our economy is very fragile. So we have employment opportunities that are very limited, and one of the things that the previous speakers touched on that we also face here is the large migration overseas. So our Tongan population is mostly migrating to New Zealand and Australia. So agriculture is the main economic activity after services, and the main agriculture that we farm here are root crops. So that would be cassava, yam, taro, and we also have squash, and we export those mainly to New Zealand, Australia, America, and other islands here in the South Pacific, namely Samoa and American Samoa. With squash, the other vegetable that we export, it is one of our major exports, but that's mostly to Japan, Korea, and American Samoa. Now, Tonga has one of the highest rates of subsistence food production amongst the Pacific Island countries, and most farmers maintain multi-crop systems based on root crops, which provide the food security and also employment and income. The majority of the land holdings are quite small. It's only 8 acres. I think it's small compared to the numbers we've been hearing from the previous speakers, especially in the African countries. So our population here is about 100,000, and so that can give you some sort of scale about what we're talking about. The majority, yes, as I mentioned, it's only 8 acres, and agricultural land use is dominated by this crop cultivation, followed by livestock. But only half of the agricultural land is in use, the rest is fallow. And I think I heard as well that, is it Zambia is experiencing similar things, but much more. One of the biggest challenges that we face is that we rely mostly on just the climate, so we rely on the rain to water our plants, and we have no irrigation system. We have a very tropical climate, so we do get a lot of rain, but as they mentioned before, it's unpredictable. So we have some droughts, and then it does rain, but we also have no proper catchment system. But one of the things that Tonga is looking at on a national level is hopefully desalination. So on a national level, we're looking at about 25 million to help all the farmers. But as usual, it's a cost issue, so that hasn't gained much traction. And some farmers are looking into it just for their own personal use. But yeah, that's where we stand from our side. And that's just, this is just sort of like a snippet of where Tonga stands with agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have covered many important points. I think in spite of problem of food security, how to go for multi-cropping systems, which can be emulated by other countries also, and the kind of items which you are in a position to export. I think this is a varied basket of exports by the global south, and among them also a lot of trade takes place. And especially in the case when we could rise at the time of pandemic, we should have a plan in advance if any such situation crops up again, how well we are equipped and how well we are stocked to take care of such hiccups. I next go to Dr. Karim Maradia from Michigan State University, a friend of Global South, and he's Director of World Technology Access also. He has also worked in the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, CIMIT. Dr. Maradia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining from. My name is Karim Maradia. I serve as the Director of International Program in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources here at Michigan State University. I'm originally from India. I'm from North Gujarat state, from a small village. And first of all, I would like to congratulate RIS and Dr. Sachin for organizing this conference very timely. And congratulations for launching of this Global South Center of Excellence. I agree with all of the issues that have been presented and highlighted by the panelists. So I am at Michigan State University, and we are a land grant university in the United States. Every state has at least one land grant university, and our mission is research, education, and outreach. And our outreach mission goes beyond the boundary of the state of Michigan or the US, but to all over the world. And our college is currently engaged with in collaborative program with over 60 countries around the world. So it's really an honor and pleasure to work with countries in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, in Middle East, and all over the world. We have been collaborating with Dr. Sachin and IRS for a number of years. And really our goal for international program is to build global knowledge partnerships. Our college has a mission of research, teaching, and extension. We have collaborative research programs in India and other parts of the world, also educational programs and extension and outreach. In India, we work with a number of state agricultural universities and also with the Indian research institutions of Indian Council of Agriculture Research. And on extension side, we closely work with MANAGE, which is the National Institute for Agriculture Extension Management in Hyderabad, and also with TAS, the Trust for Advancement of Science and Technology. Really, my perspective is that these problems and issues highlighted, these are not really country specific. Some of these are global issues, and we need to work together. We need to partner, and we believe in global knowledge partnerships. So we are really looking forward to be associated with this Global South Center of Excellence and bring our expertise and our knowledge in these pressing challenges like climate change and food security and others. By the way, I was just in India and I visited my village. And whenever I go to my village, I visit school. And one thing I noticed that the number of students in the village school before pandemic, there were about 541 students. And the number of students have declined to 393. And I was asking why. So it looks like the young people are moving to towns and cities. So one of the issues that we need to look at it is how the youth engagement and youth empowerment in agriculture. Youth don't find agriculture as one of the preferred profession, and how do we engage? So that's one area that we need to focus. And we as a university, we have looked at the India's national education policy, which was released in 2020. And one of the area under the national education policy is global outreach and global partnerships. So we are looking forward to partnering with just in the state of Maharashtra, where the number of agriculture universities came together and discussed about their strategy for implementing. So as India moves forward on implementation of the national education policy, we look forward to more collaborations and more partnerships. The other area that that I think has really come is that agriculture in India and all over the world is moving really not just from production driven to more production and market driven. So as we move to market driven agriculture, the quality and the relevance of agricultural higher education becomes important. Is how do we enhance agriculture education to meet the growing needs of this market driven agriculture with increased role of private sector. So I think this area we would like to collaborate with RIS and with other partners. The other issue that I saw in my village is water remains a major issue. Many people have left farming because of the lack of water. So water resources and water management. And then lastly, I think Dr. Rao highlighted the last mile issue is that the agriculture extension is how do we get the knowledge and technologies in the hands of these smallholder farmers. So I think these are some of the areas that I've observed, and we are really looking forward to collaborating with RIS and with other global partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Karim Mardi. Especially, you have been associated with RIS, and I think Global South will benefit from your knowledge. You mentioned about water is very critical for the entire Global South. If you see the water stress map of the world, it speaks for itself. And on extension part of the agriculture remains critical. Friends, now, as I earlier informed, our Director General, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, is here. He has been attending it. He had joined in between. I request him to make his remarks. Over to Professor Chaturvedi.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Anand. Again, our gratitude to everyone who has joined online, and we would very much like to invite at this point any observation that anyone may have. So for next few minutes, we can spend some time in terms of observations, clarifications, future roadmap, any idea that you may have on DAKSHIN, which has emerged as our initiative for Global South Center of Excellence, trying to bring forward development and knowledge sharing initiative. And some of you have mentioned in the message, and Dr. Anand was just now mentioning that we can also think in terms of identifying a handbook that may come up on the best practices in agriculture, experiences of different countries in the Global South. So at this point, I would very much like to open up if there are any comments generally we are getting, or anyone who would like to take the floor. We may facilitate, make them panelists, and see if we see anyone coming in. But as I was intending to mention right in the beginning, Global South Center of Excellence is India's commitment at the G20. And this is the idea to bring in development across sectors. South-South cooperation, or Global South's role, would be best when we bring in solutions which are shared. We don't have to put in resources to reinvent the wheel. Our experiences in agriculture, our experiences in resource mobilization, our experiences in coping up with climate change pressures, I think are extremely important. I am keenly awaiting for any signal from any of our participants today. More than 200 people are there, so we are also trying to cope up with any indications that we are getting through messages or through platform. Are we getting anyone who wants to take a floor? So if we are giving floor to anyone, Rawat, just see if somebody is keen, and we allow them to take the floor at this point.
In the meantime, I have received one question from Mr. Luma from the Policy Studies Institute of Ethiopia. He has mentioned that he has a lot of interest in roots and tubers, and he requests Lady Pane from Tonga, Kingdom of Tonga, to comment on it. Lady Pane, are you still with us? Otherwise, Professor Karim Mardi, belonging to Gujarat, which has a lot of roots and tubers, can also respond.
Can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So there is water stress in many countries. So there's a question that how one can invest more and better productivity of roots and tubers. The crops which are of the type of roots and tubers that go the ground.
I think one of the area that they have looked at is developing water use efficient technologies like the drip irrigation and so on, and also developing some drought tolerant crops. Yeah. And this is where technologies, biotechnology comes in, developing drought tolerant crops and also using some of the water efficient technologies.
Thank you very much.
I also see some other colleagues on the screen now. Anyone would like to take the floor? It is open now. So I see 2 hands coming in. Yeah, please.
May I?
Yeah, please.
Hello, good afternoon from the International Fund for Agricultural Development here in Rome, in Italy. I'm very pleased to have been invited to this seminar, and I think it's an excellent initiative, the establishment of this South-South Center of Excellence. My name is Amma Branford Arthur, and I work in IFAD's corporate approach to South-South development. IFAD, as you probably know, is both a specialized UN agency and an international financial institution. And I note there was a reference to the work that we do from Mr. Rawlings during his presentation. Having attended quite a number of such platforms, such webinars, such workshops in South-South and Triangular Cooperation, and having the practical experience of working on the modality for a number of years, I think it's extremely important that we highlight the necessity to look for, to the extent possible, homegrown solutions. And in that regard, I think that India is doing an excellent job, and my colleagues and I are actually planning on engaging much closer with the RIS. I just wanted to share an example of how we can increase scalability, replication, just starting from very little, but then crowding in strategic partnerships, which is what IFAD seeks to do for its South-South and Triangular Cooperation agenda. We recently concluded a visit to Nigeria, a study visit from La Côte d'Ivoire to Nigeria to study more about aquaculture, which of course is an extremely important area for increasing both nutrition and incomes, a way in which we might bring in the youth, bring in women, which are core target communities for IFAD. I think that one of the lessons, and I'll be very brief, that we learned is that it's extremely important to identify what is the most valid intervention for the community. SSTC should not be seen, I think, as a silver bullet that solves all development problems. We must be careful to identify what is valid, what works, and most of all, whether we have the institutions and the framework to support the implementation of such interventions. Of course, I know that there are colleagues here who are far more experienced in the modality than I am, and I really would be interested in finding out during our discussions how you have approached the fact that this is a specialized modality, as widespread as it is, and we must be careful and selective, if you like, in the way that it is employed. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. Thanks, Emma, for very, very focused and very comprehensive suggestions you have made. RIS would be very happy to take DAKSHIN's partnership with forward with you. So I'm delighted. Thanks a lot for your observation. I see my very old friend, Dr. Ravi Khetarpal here. So warm welcome and my New Year greetings to all and to you. We are running out of time now. I also see Dr. Khandelwal on screen. So I would very much like to give a platform to both of you. Kindly be as precise as possible, and then we are moving towards closing of this excellent discussion that is there. Dr. Ravi Khetarpal.
Thank you, Sachin, and congratulations to you and the RIS team for this Global South Center of Excellence. It's indeed a great idea, and I know under your leadership it will come up very well. Now, to be brief, I had been listening to all the speakers, all made very important points, and mainly they were related to technology and all, and what they are doing with the, especially in the agriculture sector. I have one point here to make. Before I say that, I work for Asia Pacific Association of Agriculture Research Institution, working with 22 countries in South Asia and Southeast Asia, and even in the Pacific. Now, we undertake projects on international trade, on environment, and on agroecology, or you can call it biodiversity issues. And we cover all aspects of capacity building. Now, we have also started a work on One Health, which is above and beyond SPS, where you bring plant, animal, and human health on one platform, which I think is a thing we should think of. The point I want to make is, after having listened to all, one point I found a bit missing was all the technology, all the growth, the percentage rise in export and production, everything. No one talked about the increase in income of the smallest denominator. I mean, in agriculture, it is income of farmers, or maybe on the SMEs to some extent. I think that is very important to link our technological growth and outputs and outcomes with the income of the smallest denominator in the society. That is one area I really wanted to listen to. Hopefully, there will be information which may be shared in future. Apart from that, in the capacity building side, I would like to say a lot of points were made on capacity building in various sectors. I would like to say, for that matter, we have to look at the innovation ecosystem. We work on an agriculture innovation ecosystem, which is so crucial, where you have a system to develop the capacity to innovate, irrespective of whatever field it is. It is a very generic thing I'm talking, but capacity to innovate has not been covered. And the capacity to innovate actually is building the functional skills. And the functional skills are so important, whether you do an individual capacity building or an institutional capacity building or the capacity of the enabling environment. And these functional capacities, for example, are like capacity to collaborate, capacity to do policy strengthening, capacity to listen, and so on.
Dr. Ketapal, we are running out of time. Can you please quickly wind up?
I just sum up by saying that we need to work on the change of mindset on how we are looking at technology and capacities. Thank you, Sachin.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Ketapal. Let me bring in Dr. Khandelwal, and then I also see Dr. Khatabi here. So we would request him to take the floor. But Dr. Khandelwal, can you be just very brief, please?
Yes, I'll try my best. Greetings from Council on Energy, Environment and Water, CEW, where I work. 3 quick points I would want to make, basically suggestions. Just hearing what our colleagues from Zambia were saying, that governments need to be very cautious in thinking through how they support prices, and similarly, multiple governments are supporting input subsidies, etc. So I think there is an opportunity for this platform to enable also learning on how we can enable much more coherent, recalibrated support to agriculture via different subsidies that we provide. India recently launched PM Pranam. There is multiple innovative schemes that are emerging, such as Bhavantar, etc. In Costa Rica, we know they have implemented payment for ecosystem services and other innovations. I think there is a lot that we can learn from each other on this front. That's one. Second, I think the conversation remained more focused on land-based agriculture. I'm hoping that there would be opportunities to also learn from each other on allied sectors such as dairy or livestock rearing, fisheries, etc. India has some great stories like Amul, those growth stories to share with the world, and I'm sure there are learnings from other countries on that front. Third, very quick one, and I'm sure this is on our radar. The learnings from India would definitely come from the states. So Odisha, I mean, millets we talked about, the growth, I mean, really the experiment happened in Odisha Millet Mission. Similarly, natural farming, I think a lot of work is happening in Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. I think bringing the learnings from states would be essential. And overall, very glad to see this platform emerging with leadership from RIS. Thank you for that.
Dr. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We are really running out of time now. Let me bring in Dr. Khatabi for his very quick intervention.
Thank you very much. Thank you to RIS for inviting us to join to this webinar, and congratulations for all the panelists. I'm talking from Morocco here. I'm working with the Royal Institute of Strategic Studies, and all what has been said here as issues or challenges we have dealt somehow with this. I just see that there is one thing that is missing. that we didn't talk about it, and it makes a little bit that conjunction with many issues that agriculture is facing, like water scarcity related to droughts, that the droughts related to climate change also, and also the land degradation and deforestation for desertification in some countries. And we were interested somehow in ERS to study this nexus between agriculture, climate change, ecosystems, and also energy efficiency or energy. And I would like to know if there are some other countries interested on that. So if there are some experiences that people have already implemented in some other countries, so we can learn from that and exchange experiences. As I saw and noticed that most of problems that we are facing here in agriculture in Morocco are the same in the global south. It's related to this climate change, digitalization, capacity buildings, employments, and we do have in Morocco here the new strategy that will span from 2020 to 2030 that is addressing all these aspects and trying to find out some solutions to deal with this. And also regarding climate change, Morocco has already implemented initiated one initiative in the context of the implementation of the Paris Agreements on climate change. And this is Africa, the adaptation of African agriculture to climate change, and it deals with some aspects, and some other countries from Africa joined that initiatives. And it would be good also if we know how people deal with this adaptation to climate change in different countries, and we can exchange on this area. And thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Tabi. Let me bring in the last intervention from the floor. We have Dr. Warako with us. You may please have the floor. Please be as brief as possible. Are you on mute?
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful forum for all of us from Global South to learn, exchange ideas, and contribute some of our knowledge. My question is, there are a number of issues, but I will go to focus on private sector engagement in agricultural transformation, because the government cannot satisfy all this productivity, input, market, a number of issues which we have mentioned by different colleagues from the panel discussants. So maybe how can we bring active private sector engagement in agricultural investment? Mainly it could be in technology, input, marketing, whatever, so that some of the challenges which we are facing in terms of food security would be placed. So maybe the the issues to be played by the government in terms of policy, in terms of allowing access to investment and finance, whatever support. So maybe this is something which is really very important, I hope, for most of global South economies. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Warako. I think this was an excellent session today. We have covered a huge canvas in terms of how global South issues, particularly in the domain of agriculture, are addressed. Our partnership has focused both in terms of the role that DAKSHIN should play, the idea of development and knowledge sharing initiatives that we are thinking should be strengthened. We have also explored the major challenges as our keynote speaker, Dr. Sirohi, covered a large sort of canvas which is important from the perspective that are related to organic products and their production, their marketing, the idea of millets and millets related value addition that she talked about. She has also talked about the risk mitigation measures that are required in crops, and I think Dr. Warako, you just mentioned about the issues which are related to risk management, related to our dimensions of engagement with information and communication technology, with agriculture stake that may come in. So a large sum of convergences that we are seeing from technology perspective, from intervention perspective, and making agriculture successful through multi-stakeholder participation. The role of the state, role of the think tanks, research institutions, but also, as was rightly mentioned, in terms of markets and as was suggested, technology, inputs, marketing, they all have to be captured together. The idea of DAKSHIN is to launch such programs at the bilateral level through discussion, demand exploration, and then its realization. The effort is to encourage national level thinking through policy researchers, through entities that can assess the demand. Otherwise, what is happening is the southern countries get assistance from wherever they are getting. Sometimes those assistance match national priorities, national requirements. Sometimes they are completely off the mark. So how do we focus this? And that's why RIS as a policy research institution, DAKSHIN as a handholder, they are coming forward to help our counterparts in these countries to form a global south kind of alliance to see where agriculture retains localization, partnership, and we deepen the cooperation, not of international assistance, but we bring in the concept that is more of self-reliance, bringing in role of international institutions to strengthen not dependence, but self-reliance. And that's where the idea of market generation, creating of private actors together, and also bringing in quality and relevance of agriculture. I am glad that Professor Karim Mardia emphasized on education. Agriculture education, as Dr. Sirohi mentioned, is extremely important. Dr. Rao emphasized on that. So I think in all different facets of education, its promotion, its regulatory content, the richness that is required, and of course, in terms of what Madam mentioned from Togo, the idea that is there from, and it was at 2 a.m. I'm so grateful to her for joining at 2 a.m. and contributing, Lady Fankufuna, for suggesting that we bring in issues which are important for water stress. Karim Bhai also mentioned that. Dr. P.K. Anand, my own colleague here, suggested reference to water stress map, and we bring in dimensions of those engagements. So I think it's a task to begin today. This was the first workshop of DAKSHIN, and I'm delighted that this work would now multiply. We would be covering on 2nd February issues that are related to health sector, a vertical on agriculture, a vertical on health, and the third vertical on digital solutions. These are the 3 verticals within DAKSHIN that would take off now, as our Prime Minister has already launched these initiatives. We would be covering these virtual workshops, which would be followed up in-person discussions in each of these member countries of this network. I once again thank each one of you for joining in. To our keynote speaker who captured this huge canvas, Dr. Smita Sirohi, our 2 discussants, Dr. S.R. Rao and Dr. Kalpana Shastri, who emphasized on entrepreneurship development, market development, and of course, all of our colleagues who took the floor and contributed. I also thank my team at DAKSHIN, led by Mr. Atul Kaushik, and supplemented on agriculture front by Dr. P.K. Anand. So thank you once again for joining in, and we would be in touch with you. Each of the comments that have been made would be followed up. My apologies to our colleagues who could not take floor, though they raised hands and sent messages. We have recorded. My team would be in touch with you. Amit, Chandani, and Rohit Rao, they all would be in touch with you to take the task forward and contribute to a more two-way communication, not one way. It would be two-way communication between DAKSHIN and our partner research institution. So thanks again, and wish you all the best for 2024. My warm greetings for New Year. Thank you.